It's not that bad. You get that, and plus, I guess, the early start helps a little bit as well. So, yeah. So there you go. Well, we'll talk a little bit about this. You're tweeting things out, and we'll go into the Citadel game and all this. And I know that you focus primarily on your team, and your assistants deal with the scouting and all this. But no, I do want to ask you a little bit difference in how Citadel is played this year as compared to last, because I think they're shooting the ball a little bit less than what they did. So anyway, let's go to this one. Yeah. All right, Tri-City Sports Now. It is our weekly visit with Steve Forbes, one of the hot coaches in college basketball, even though he has 13 victories in a row with East Tennessee State. Wasn't necessarily that happy with their performance last night in a 73-71 victory against the Citadel. 19-4 is ETSU's record. The Citadel falls to 7-14. And I guess to begin with, let's just ask, 2 of 23 shooting from outside the three-point arc. Why were you guys so ice cold against the Bulldogs shooting from the outside?
That's because we were too wide open. I don't know. Abysmal. I mean, I watched the game already. I don't think any of them were really bad shots. To be honest, they were wide open. Ball didn't go in the hole, and so got to find other ways to win. And that was the game plan, obviously, for Citadel, was to change defenses and then settle into a triangle and two where they were guarding man-to-man on Desante or man-man or Jalen, and then playing another guy's zone and leaving guys wide open shots. And we weren't making them. And that's why the game became interesting, because when you go 2 for 23 or 22, whatever it was, and they made 9 or 10, that's the difference in maybe a pretty decisive one and a close game.
Well, coaches may not like this, but I was saying, well, finally ETSU is playing a competitive game. But I know that you had tweeted out some disappointment over a close victory on the road against a team that doesn't have your one-loss record. And I guess I should ask, at what point in your mind are style points important? It is, after all, a victory.
Well, I'm never going to, I'm glad we won. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'd rather ride the bus home with a win than a loss. I just didn't feel like we played well enough to win. We didn't steal the game. They gave it to us. Sometimes you don't play well, but you find a way to win. And I just didn't feel like we found the way. I thought they gave it to us. And mental things. Especially late. Leaving the guy wide open there at the end on a wide open three to win the game when 2 points at least just ties it. And that little point guard wasn't going to make a shot at the rim anyway. We ran away from a shooter to go help, which we've kind of done that 2 or 3 times all night. Now, defensively, I could complain about the threes and that shot, but they only shot 30%. I mean, it's not like we weren't guarding them. Our biggest problem was our offense. Our offense put way too much pressure on our defense to get a stop every time.
Now, were you at all surprised? I know that the Citadel is shooting less than they did, say, at the start of the year when they had Preston Parks. And, their design coming into this season under Duggar Balcom was something called the loot and shoot. And it's a style that a lot of teams that maybe have a little bit undermanned are playing, where they like to shoot up a three as quickly as they can, coming down the court. They control the tempo, this sort of thing. You mentioned how the Bulldogs were able to change defenses and found effectiveness with a triangle and two, but did you think that they set the tempo in the game, which was their style of play at the start of the year?
Oh, no, I don't. Listen, they averaged, 90 a game? And they had, they score 71? I mean, we had 20 points under their average. Again, I don't have a lot of qualms that we guarded them. I was more concerned about our offense. Our offense led be more of my issue with them. Now, I will tell you this. I do think they play offense. I think they're a lot more under control this year than they have in the last couple of years I've been here. They had a little bit longer possessions. You know what I mean? They didn't come down and just fire up the first thing that they saw. They moved the ball pretty well, and they got a pretty good center in Zane, and he's the type of guy that causes us problems because we're big at the 5, and he can stretch out there and shoot threes. He got loose for a couple of them and made a couple, 2 or 3. So. But I think I agree with what you're saying. I don't think they're not playing as fast, and they're probably playing a little bit more under control.
I noticed that they're taking about 20 fewer shots a game from the start of the season, and that was one of the things that I actually expected. Just like the Citadel knocked off Mercer in their previous game, and they had knocked off Chattanooga last year, and you can always kind of expect them to knock off a team or two, and I thought, okay, that style that Duggar likes to play and all this, a lot of teams play that style in their boat, and it works well, actually, and it can be fun to watch, but they seem to be going away from that, and so I was a bit surprised, and I think part of the reason why is because Preston Parks isn't there anymore. I was a bit surprised, Coach Steve Forbes, that that they've been able to play so well with games in the 70s and not the 90s and the 100s and such.
Yeah. Sometimes, though, even though Preston's a really good player, sometimes you get addition by subtraction. Maybe they became a better team. I don't. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that. He's a really good player, but the reality of it is, like you said, they're taking 20 less shots. Well, that's 20 less opportunities for us to get the ball too and go down there and score. They're not always the best defensive team, and so it gives them a better chance to win. And the first half, I watched tape last night on the way home. I thought we played horrific, but in the first half, we didn't really play that bad. Mm-hmm. We were only up 4, but a lot of the credit has to go to them. They made plays, and they defended us pretty decently. And so, being up 4.5, that's not your typical what we've been used to the last couple times or 3 or 4 times we played. We've been up pretty big, so we were in a game, and that's what happened. And then we come out in the second half, and they go in the first media timeout. They're in the bonus. It's going to be a long night when you do that.
Well, one of the things I noticed also, although the Citadel did have a better 3-point shooting percentage than you guys did, ETSU this year is leading the conference in 3-point field goal defense. And so my question is, what's the key to stop the outside shot in your defense, Steve Forbes?
Well, we've been really attentive to it, and we have guys that can really close out, got some length, and we've been played more one-on-one inside the line, inside the post, been able to play one-on-one and not have to double or dig as much, and that way it doesn't open it up. We've been good at stopping dribble penetration so they can't drive, draw, and then dish it out for free. And last night, that was our issue. The point guard, Johnson, is a little guy, but he's fast. He got inside our defense, and we kept telling our guys, it's human nature to react and help, and the bottom line is on him, you don't want to do that because all he really is looking to do is the pass. He's not looking to score. It's like long time Aaron Craft. Aaron Craft was a really good point guard at Ohio State, but he couldn't score. And so I always wondered why teams, every time he would penetrate, he was always looking to kick. I don't know why teams just didn't force him to make the shot. And finally, when Wichita State played him in the Elite 8, I talked to those guys, and I wasn't there yet. I was in Northwest Florida. We talked about that, and I said, because my friends were on the staff, I said, don't come off his penetration. Don't help on his penetration. And make him score. And they beat him. And I'm saying that's why, but that helped. And it's the same type of principle last night. We shouldn't be helping on a guy who's 5'5". Make him score. And I thought he did a good job getting inside our defense and then finding, usually it was the big, Peter or Milan's guy, because they're down there trying to help because that's their, that's what they're taught to do. And then, bam, they're making threes.
And so we're talking to Steve Forbes, a little bit of basketball strategy in this circumstance. I know that 13 victories in a row, though. Even if the last victory was close, And boy, things are going well when you say you only won by 2, Coach, I guess. My question before we look at Samford, though, is, and I talked to you about this before, the idea if you'd be getting votes in the top 25, had you been able to knock off Xavier. But do you think with the Bucs now ranked 58th, I believe, in the RPI, that you are actually making a case for a potential at-large berth if you would get upset in the Southern Conference tournament?
Well, I mean, we'd have to win all the way, win the rest of our games on the championship, and then, there'd be some conversation, but the issue's going to be we don't have a top 100 win. And,
well, now, I would say that I think UNCG is 86.
Yeah, I think they'll try to bang us on the non-conference, but, I think it'd be really hard. I mean, it's disappointing because if that scenario played out, we would be 30-4 going into the championship game, and that's a heck of a team. But Murray State a few years back, Marky, I think they were 30-4 and didn't get in. So I wouldn't hold my breath on it. I can tell you that much.
We're talking to Steve Forbes, and yeah, it appears now at one point the NCAAs took as many earlier in the decade, 13 conferences with multiple bids. But your old school, Wichita State, joining the American, that's kind of made the Missouri Valley a little bit less strong, and so it now appears that there'll be 9 conferences that would get multiple bids. I did want to ask the Samford coming up. It's a team you've already defeated and such. When you look at them, what are your thoughts about this game coming up at Freedom Hall on Thursday?
Well, they scare me because they can really, they can score. They run multiple ball screens, and I've gone a little bit smaller. They put this Thompson kid who can really shoot the 3. They put him at the 5 now.
Mm-hmm.
So he could pick and pop, and they didn't do that before, so that caused us to change our defense a little bit with him. They put Dyson at the 4. They inserted another guard. So, I mean, it's a different team, and a team that's playing a little bit more confidence on offense. So, that's something that we're going to have to prepare for over the next 48 hours. We're not going to be able to do a whole lot today. 5 games in 11 days, a lot of travel. We got back late last night, had class today. We're going to watch film, and then we'll go walk through what they do. And then tomorrow, we'll have a full practice before game day. But, we're just going to have to, we're going to have to be able to defend the balls, multiple ball screens, and be prepared to defend a 5-man that can shoot 3s.
You mentioned a 5 that can shoot 3s. I mean, Peter Jerkin has had a good percentage going out as well. But is there, even though you're talking about Thompson playing away from the bucket, is there an advantage that can be had due to Aramis's and Jerkin's size advantage in the game?
No question. Yeah, no question. And I thought when we played them down there, they played probably, they might have played 100% zone, but we did a good job of getting it to those big guys, and they finished around the basket. And so, definitely, got to take advantage of that, And again, last night, I thought we missed opportunity to throw it in there. But, late in the game, Bo Hodges made a great play on a drive against the triangle and 2, and pitched it inside to Malad, who had a wide-open shot, and got his shot blocked right at the rim by a guy who's a lot smaller than him. So, they got to take advantage when they get those opportunities around the basket. They got to finish.
I'm intrigued by that 100% zone because I'm thinking after a 2-23 day outside the 3, they may be more inclined to continue to do that and challenge you to shoot from outside, seeing if the cold streak continues, that sort of thing. So something you'll have to be taking care of against Samford on Thursday night. Final question I wanted to ask. I did see where the NCAA has now allowed a season, we're talking about in November or so, to begin on a weekday. You can open up your year instead of, I saw Frank Martin, who is the coach at South Carolina, talking about how he thought this was going to be an advantage. He didn't think that basketball now had to compete for attention with football. But he also talked about taking 2 games off the schedules, which would basically leave very little point for the big boys to play teams like East Tennessee State. What were your thoughts on being able to open up the season on a weekday, and is this something you'll take advantage of in the future?
Yeah, sure, I like it because you don't have to smash. It gives you a little bit more space in your schedule trying to get games in, in the preseason, and so I got no problem with it. I like it. Maybe a little more attention to your team because you're opening it up during the week and not on the weekend when football is still being played. So I don't mind it at all. I think it's a good thing for us to give us a little bit more flexibility in our schedule as far as having more dates to play.
And I would say that I think also more attention during the course of a week, because a lot of times that basketball game during football season, even in ETSU, is put to the wayside. I know myself that I was, I got to check out what the Bucs are doing here, because a lot of the games that you guys were playing were just against the NFL. And, want to go check that out too. So, anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're, that I will still watch the NFL. Actually, I'm not sorry about that. But I like watching ETSU too, and I always have. And I'll be enjoying taking in the game against the Samford Bulldogs. Steve Forbes, always a pleasure. And we wish you good luck for this week. Tri-City Sports Now coming back after this. All right. Well, thanks again.
All right, Brian.
And,